Hi friends, I'm Julia, and today we are talking about critical reasoning inference questions, specifically the different types of correct answers that show up in these questions. These can be tricky if you're not sure what to look for, but once you realize the high burden of support that CR inference questions are subject to, you will be able to see how the limits on the forms they can take are pretty strict. I'm going to break down the most common types you'll see so that you can learn to recognize them quickly and eliminate unsupported distractors with ease. First up is paraphrasing answers. These are answers that basically restate something in the passage, but with slightly different language. The GMAT will often use this alternate phrasing to mask a simple idea. For instance, if a passage says that fuel per mile was cut in half, an answer could say that miles per liter doubled. This isn't the exact same concept, it's just been reframed a bit. These answers can feel a bit too obvious once you spot them, but that doesn't make them incorrect. That's actually what makes them right. They are directly supported. They are just in a slightly different shape than the original passage was. Closely related is formula-based inferences. These are also rooted in what the passage says, but they rely on a simple understanding of business math or logic. So if the passage tells you that revenue went down but profit stayed the same, you might see an answer that correctly concludes that expenses must have increased. Why? Because profit equals revenue minus expenses. The only way for profit to stay the same if revenue decreases is that expenses also decrease to the same level. This is the test using your basic reasoning rather than giving you all the numbers. These answers are usually pretty concrete and require just a step or two of logical thinking, but that can be scary when you're dealing with inferences and you know that the right answer has to be fully supported. So it does make some testers skittish. Then we have inferences supported by some calculations. These are similar to the formula-based inferences, but with actual math involved. So if a passage said that company X only has full-time and part-time employees, 75% of employees are full-time and there are 200 employees total, an answer could say that there are 50 part-time employees. This type is very straightforward, but it requires you to do a bit of calculation. The numbers will always be there and the correct answer won't go beyond what can be directly calculated. Math is easier to fully support than verbal concepts in many cases. So math is relatively more popular in inference questions than it is in other CR question types for that reason. It's easier to get to that fully supported point when you're dealing with numbers. Next up, group composition. These are inferences based on group membership or subgroups, that sort of thing. These are based on specific characteristics of a group described in the passage. If the passage discusses a study of 40 frogs, it includes yellow, green, blue, and red species, and it looked at color brightness in relation to predator behavior, a correct answer could say predator reactions to yellow frogs were investigated. This is basic set logic. You're just matching members and attributes directly from the facts given. Notice that if the answer choice said that predator reactions to yellow frogs were observed, that would not necessarily be supported because we don't know how the study was set up. It could have been observing, the scientists could have been looking right at the predator-prey interactions in real time, or it could have been more like book research. So be careful with how far the answer choice goes and make sure that it doesn't go too far, which brings us to our next group. Language and level matching answers. These often rely on qualifiers like some or most, usually, not necessarily, something that qualifies the answer. In inference questions, precision matters. If the passage says that some fish swim upstream, then the answer that says many fish swim upstream is too strong. But an answer that says at least one fish swims upstream is totally fair. The wording has to match the certainty level and restrictiveness of the passage. And finally, eliminating impossibilities. Sometimes the correct inference is just what cannot be true based on what we're told. If we know that in the town of Cascadia, the internet doesn't exist, and all shopping is done in stores, and that every store in town closes by 9 p.m., then a correct inference answer could be a customer who claimed to have made a purchase in Cascadia at 10 p.m. would be incorrect. It contradicts what the passage says, so there's no way that it could be true. If the answer says no purchases were made in town after 9 p.m., that could also be a correct inference. You are just using the facts to limit the possibilities. So, in summary, here are the 6 things to look for: paraphrasing and phrasing flips, formula-based logical conclusions, basic numerical calculations, basic math calculations, group and subgroup reasoning, so group makeup dynamics, that sort of thing, language and level matching, make sure that your choice doesn't go past the level of the passage, and answers that just state that something impossible did not happen. The nice thing about inference questions is that they don't require guessing. They don't expect you to read between the lines. They very much want you to read in the lines. They are about staying within the boundaries of what's already stated. Every correct answer will be fully supported. It won't always be obvious, but it will always be fully rooted in the text. Now that you know what to look for, go back to your practice questions and see which of these categories the correct answers fall into. Until next time.